Today is the 124th Security Thought Leadership webinar, and we've been here throughout lockdown since it started in March last year, where we've been holding thought leadership webinars, critiquing today in order that we may get a better type of security tomorrow. And the topic today is one that has emerged in various guises along that journey. It's what are the beneficiaries? Who are the beneficiaries of a thriving security sector beyond clients? There is this sense amongst some that security is about the protection of assets. It's only there to make a profit. And many of the good things and many of the benefits that security accrues by being good at what it does gets lost in translation as a consequence. Well, we thought it would be a good idea, spurred on by you, in fact, to host a webinar precisely on this topic. What are the benefits of a thriving security sector? Who benefits beyond clients? Once again, I've invited three panelists who come at security from very different angles. In a second, what I'll do is I'll invite them to introduce themselves. And once they've done that, I'll come back to each of them and invite them to make their opening statement. 3 minutes when they get to say whatever they want to about this subject matter. Once they've done that, I'll invite you, the audience, to ask questions. You may want to get your questions in early using the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen, the Q&A button. Get your questions in early and we'll endeavour to incorporate it into the ensuing discussion. Without further ado then, let's go and meet.
So you lost your sound there, Martin.
Oh goodness. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I'll kick off. So introduction. So my name is Eddie Ingram. I'm the managing director of Bidvest Security Solutions. Bidvest Noonan is a facilities management group currently operating across Ireland and the UK. We have a market-leading presence in Ireland and a strong emerging presence in GB. I'm responsible for the security solutions business in Great Britain, and we're probably turning over now in excess of 250 million security, and group-wide around 750 million.
Thank you, Eddie. Put you in an interesting position. Peter, who's very kindly joining us from holiday over in the Netherlands. Peter, please introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, Martin. I'm Peter Prak. I'm an independent security consultant in the Netherlands. I'm doing, in fact, two things. I develop security concepts for larger companies in the Netherlands on strategic, tactical and operational level. I have developed a decision support model in which it can help to decide what focus should be done in companies for the protection of their assets. And for the last years, I am also working 2 days a week for the Dutch Ministry of Defense. I'm Lieutenant Colonel, and I'm helping them with the organizational part of security.
Peter, thank you very much indeed. And finally, let's meet David. Now, David's camera's not working. We've tried to rectify it. But David, you're here in person. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Martin. That's probably good news for everybody who can't see me today. A 30-year veteran of the Metropolitan Police, really specialising in territorial, firearms, royalty, aviation and counter-terrorism. For a living, after that, I formed a software company called Global Aware International, which really deals with business intelligence across large blue chip estates and government, which is now owned by the largest security company in the UK, where I'm an executive director. I'm currently the group international chairman of a group called TinyG, the Global Terrorism Information Network, which is a free to join group with membership in 150 countries, ably assisted with some senior advisory councils drawn from academia, law enforcement and government and blue chip. Thank you for the invitation, Martin.
David, thank you very much indeed. Well, welcome panel. Without further ado then, let's do what we always do. Let's immediately get on to the opening statements, the juicy bit. So Eddie, can we come to you first, please? Your opening thoughts on this topic.
Sure, thanks, Martin. Yeah, no, I think for me it's clear that the security industry drives significant benefits for many more than those who pay for it. Everybody moving around the country, using the services of retail, leisure, commercial, transport providers and so many more directly and indirectly benefit from the investments made in the private sector or private security, sorry, or the wider security sector. Yeah, a good example of that is we're responsible for providing security services to a large mixed-use estate around King's Cross. Primary function might be to protect the assets of the property owners and the assets of the tenants and occupiers. But the estate itself is used by thousands of people who don't work there. Many of them don't actually spend any money there, but they use it as an area to relax, visit, socialise, and to exercise. So our services ensure that this remains a safe and secure environment for them, as well as those who directly or indirectly through their service charges pay for the security. You know, they flag and deal with things like slip and trip hazards. They deal with acts of violence or threatening behaviour. They're trained to spot and deal with potential suicide scenarios on the canal sides. They move on beggars or others who are hassling people, you know, who are just trying to sit there and enjoy a drink and so on. You know, and that means there's a limited police presence now required on the estate due to the success of the security operation, and that frees up the police to deal with other matters elsewhere. But when they do get involved, when there are issues, all the data and information they require is managed and presented to them, you know, effectively and efficiently to ensure that they can process the matter quickly and move on to other matters. I think, you know, large public events, for example, in sporting or leisure and entertainment, you know, they may have an overall police presence and management plan, but a large part of the activities undertaken will no doubt be provided through the security sector. Now, whether that be manpower provision, or it could be a technical support or the provision of security hardware and intelligence, but the benefits of these services will be realised by not only those who are attending the event, so in effect paying for them, but also those in the surrounding areas, as access and egress from the venues is effectively managed. So by doing that, we're minimising local impacts, helping to ensure the transport networks continue to operate safely and getting people in and out of the area quickly. You know, so these are just some examples of how the security industry currently support beyond those who pay. But I think there's other things we can do. You know, we can also continue to develop the skills and training of our security officers, you know, so they can continue to use their skills for the wider benefit of society. You know, how many examples do we hear about security officers using their first aid skills to save lives, deliver babies even, or provide care to passers-by or the general public when they come across people in trouble? You know, CCTV monitoring, you know, it can flag issues, provide evidence for the police for activities outside the area of the building or the site demise, which benefits again, you know, the wider community. And I think, you know, within the security sector now, and this is something which is much more prevalent, you know, groups are set up to share intelligence and information across a business or amongst competitors even, or with the authorities, so that the information can be quickly and effectively shared, and it allows the police to act quicker than they would have been able to do so otherwise. So, you know, I think these are all examples of how we support and benefit our wider communities, and not just those who pay our bills.
Thank you very much indeed. I almost feel as though we need that speech broadcast around the world time and time again. Thank you. We'll come back to some of that in a minute, Eddie. Peter, can we come to you, please? And your opening statement, please.
Yeah, it seems that security is always in the center of an operation of any businesses. But I wonder if the individual employee should be in the center of operation and center of attention, like it should be in safety. I will come to that later. Security should be integrated in enterprise risk management, and I believe it is not in many times and in many companies at this moment. So security is always most of the time focused on a qualitative approach. Because we have a lack of insight in data, it is a contribution to quality and not to the disquality. And I give you an example from the railway industry. The contribution of security incident like trespassing is a very small part of the punctuality figures within the railway industry. But if you look to the disquality of the railway industry, it is almost 25%. So that gives another attention to the importance of the security, and in that way, also to the benefits. As part of enterprise risk management, it should be a business continuity approach. And in this business continuity approach, we should be focused on stakeholders and customers and all people that can benefit of the security issues within a company. So even low chance, high effect incidents should be part of the contingency planning and the resilience. And they offer in that way a smoothless operation. Safety and security seem to be two sides of the same medal. And although differences in content, in approach, there are many similarities. For example, communication and awareness. It is about the general public, it is about the employees, it is about stakeholders, and it is about customers. Then back to my first issue. It should be a focus on the employee at first sight, but in the same time, part of a business operation integrated in the management of any company. So far, Martin.
Excellent, 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 excellent. Thank you very much indeed, Peter. Appreciate that. Penny, to come back to you as well on once we've heard from our third panelist. And just before I do, if you'd like to ask a question or you'd like to get involved in the debate, please use the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen. If you do that, we'll endeavour to get to you once we've heard from David. David, your opening statement, please.
Thank you very much, Martin. Mine comes in several levels, and really from the grassroots. I think it provides reassurance from those who don't necessarily pay the bill. You know, whether it be a highly trained officer who is regulated by the SIA, he may or she may be in high-vis uniform or in a vehicle. It really does provide an assurance for people simply going out for the evening or going about their daily business. And I think, you know, going to what Eddie said, you know, it could be a first aid incident. It could be many, many things. And I think, you know, it's time for us to understand as well that with public-private partnerships as well, we can certainly look at perhaps replacing in some form a police officer to do other important tasks and benefiting the public from that as well, releasing that officer to do other things. We also provide many initiatives and studies into new ways of learning within the security sector. And I think in many ways, with the collaboration with the police, the government, that is something that is transposed into considerable vehicles that will be assessed and adopted by the general public. And if we look, for example, at things such as around cyber and, you know, the theft from people's accounts, etc., there's been a great deal of excellent publicity about that. And perhaps 5 or 6, 7 years ago, people weren't as savvy as they are now. Now, because I think the security sector has been very much ingrained in the R&D around things like that, they've brought it more and more to the public attention with the assistance of the police and the banks, just preparing them. With regard to information, prepare and protect, you know, we put a lot of money and areas of interest into things like mass communications that are disseminated as well for the wider public good in terrorist incidents such as happened in London Bridge and other places like that to protect them. And there are intelligence modules as well where we have technology to help both the police and, for example, and I'll give one that I know of all the retailers who get their heads together, understand different modes of attack, etc., thefts, penetration to losses, and protect the public from rising prices even outside the box they probably wouldn't know about, but actually all of those arrangements are in place. There are community initiatives as well where we assist the police in spreading their message, which is of no cost at all to the general populace. And I think protecting assets and lives are paramount, and the security industry certainly has a big part to play in that, and it does very, very well. Could we do more? I think we could. We could continue to outreach with public versus private partnerships even more than we already do, and it might be that government assists those groups both financially and tangibly to assist with those arrangements and put more information out, and maybe include more of the private partnerships in wider discussions in government. And some of the great initiatives out there as well, for example, the ACT app from the Metropolitan Police and M&S, that was a really good example of something that's provided to the general public free of charge, and how to deal with a terrorist attack and understand what they should do and their actions on a find. So more engagement with TV and media is certainly something I'd sign up to with regards to that sort of medium. So the police and partnerships is a big piece for me as well.
David, thank you very much indeed. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, let's kick this off. Eddie, let me come to you first. Eddie, you outlined the various ways first in which the public and the police benefit. Thinking of those two entities, public and police, do you think they're grateful to the security sector?
I think it depends. It's probably the first answer to that. I think with the police, I think there's a lot of good work being done around building relationships and understanding about how we can work together and do more. And certainly in London, there's been a lot of effort with the City of London Police and the Met Police in terms of building up these relationships. So I think there is a very clear understanding and knowledge of what the private security sector brings to them in terms of what they're doing. So I think that's been a journey, and I think there's more to be done. But there's some current partnerships ongoing where we take the City of London Police, where we're actually a number of companies that operate in the city are partnering together under the City Security Council and the City of London Police to put in place intelligence and systems to allow the police to better manage and have access to data about what's going on around the city. So, I think that's a prime example of where it works well. In terms of the public, clearly the lady recently who had her baby delivered by one of our officers is very grateful for what we do. I think that really depends on your interaction. A lot of people will think of doormen and have maybe had a poor experience and might have a negative view on the sector, and others will be oblivious to the level of work that we do. But anybody certainly who operates in some of the more, some of these sort of the bigger buildings in the city, office blocks in the cities around the GB will know exactly the input that security teams have to make their life better and easier. So, I think it's evolving. And as we focus more on things like the softer skills of security around the customer care piece, service excellence, and how security officers interact with the public and their clients, I think the value of what we're providing is becoming more aware to many.
Okay, thank you very much. Peter, let me come to you. I mean, you could put a Dutch perspective on this for us. Peter, would you say the work of the private security sector broadly, including security teams in corporations, would you say that it's recognised for being as good and as helpful as it is by those stakeholders?
Yeah, in general, I believe. There are a few insights to make. First of all, it's hard for them to say what their contribution is, and I come back to my previous statement about enterprise risk management. So what is their contribution in the end to the business operation? But I believe if they have the right focus, if they have the right principles, if they have the right procedures in place, I believe they have a good contribution to the security level of any company. But it makes it hard, and that is the discussion we should think about on the interface between public and private areas. Should a private sector only focus on the inside of the company, or should they have attention as well on the interface to the public area?
And your view?
And my view is they should do, because that is ownership, and that is part of the SEPTED principles I like to enter in the discussion.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. I mean, it strikes me, David, you're a good person to ask this to. Have you changed your view of the security sector having moved from one side to the other?
Yeah, and that's a fair question. Yes, I have. I think perhaps there was a time, and you know, I came over a decade ago, remember, but I think perhaps there wasn't as much value as there clearly is, really identified or exploited, perhaps on both sides, both the security side and the police side of each other's skill sets. Now they work very much more closer together. I think most certainly they're seen as real enablers, incredibly enthusiastic, and people who just simply go the extra yard to try and assist wherever they possibly can. I've seen evidence. And if I could just touch on the previous question as well,
Yeah.
I'm also unequivocal that the senior police officers I deal with on a daily basis here and abroad are extremely grateful for what we do. They're also always open to a conversation as to what we have on the table to offer them as ideas and innovations, and often they will adopt some of those as well. So I'm fully behind both parties, and I think there's a great support for the security industry.
Interesting. How extremely positive. Okay, let me come to Brian Sims. Eddie, I'll come back to you if I might. And Brian Sims is one of the leading journalists in this country, security from the security press. Brian says, Eddie, it's always been said that a key benefit of security officers is that they realise for the police service a second pair of ears, second pair of eyes, perhaps as well. Does the panel feel that the old trust barriers that used to persist have now been broken down? And if you do, Eddie, sufficiently, or is there more we can do? Good point. This is about at the lower levels rather than at the higher levels, Eddie.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to what I said before. I think it's evolving, no, I think as an industry, you know, as we've developed technology and we use technology in more of what we do, I think it creates information that becomes invaluable to the police, or it provides information that can become invaluable to the police in terms of what they're doing. So, you know, I think, you know, the relationships have improved a lot as a result of that. I think there is a lot more trust because it's not just about hearsay or trying to look through some old, you know, occurrence book or something like that. You know, there's proper data now captured on systems, and the quality of some of the systems that we're using are you know, are really high end, which provides data which is, as I say, is invaluable to the police in terms of carrying out their activities. So, you know, I think as we've become much more technically proficient in what we do, and we bring more technology into what we do, I think that relationship has improved significantly, and the value for what we can create for the police in that situation is something which, you know, can become admissible in terms of what they're doing. So, you know, I think that has really helped build that level of trust between the police and security companies at all levels.
I mean, I think the thing is, Eddie, that do you think there is what would be the next stage of this? What needs to happen for that to be even better than it is?
I think it's probably more progressive sharing of intelligence, so more advanced notice of what's happening. What, you know, so if there are things going on that the police are aware of, and we're seeing this now through the partnerships that do exist. You know, there's much better briefings now for the security industry from the police and from other bodies, you know, government type bodies around potential activities that are coming up. So what can we do to support that? Whether it be demonstrations, whether it be you know, other potential threats. It means that we can not only provide the manpower that we've got to help police at certain circumstances, it means that we can also capture information as and when it happens, and then make sure that information is shared quickly across the various authorities who are dealing with the scenarios. So, you know, I think the more we share in advance, the more proactive we are around that intelligence piece. I think the more it will grow. As I say, there's some great examples of that happening already, and certainly the City of London Police and the Met Police are you know, are really sort of driving that forward now. So, you know, very encouraged by the way that's going.
Thank you very much. I mean, Peter, interested in this because Brian's question is more about the lower levels. And and the reason why this is important, I suppose, Peter, is because one, there are so many at the lower levels, and two, it's because that's the visible sign of security by which many people judge security. Is it the same in the Netherlands? And what's the relationship and perception of the lower levels of security in the Netherlands?
Well, in general, it is the same in the Netherlands as well. But what I want to stress is that a cooperation between the private security sector and the police departments is, in general, is after incidents. But it should be proactive. It should be proactive based. So it should be public. Should be incorporated also in facing the possibilities of their contribution. After an incident, it's normal that the police is asking people, shop owners, what they have seen, but they can be a major part of capacity for free, I would say, for focusing on security prevention. And it is one of the SEPTED principles, and Dennis Shepp mentioned something like that in his comments as well, and I agree on that. So it is not about only the police and the security sector itself. It should be integrated in the surrounding of any location, and that's what should be stressed, I believe.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. And since you've mentioned that, let me just mention what Dennis Shepp says. So Dennis Shepp, he's a panelist next week, by the way, from Canada, says, in tourism, there's some great examples where communities have increased tourism and opening the community to its members and visitors. Initiative in New York City to clean up Times Square, in Hollywood, California to clear up Hollywood Boulevard. Local business improvement boards hire private security to clean up the neighbours and provide a safer environment using SEPTED principles. Since implementation, the community regained ownership and tourism continued to flourish. I mean, I guess that's the point you're making too about the potential for good here. Yeah,
and but it is needed that you all work from the same principles, and SEPTED is one general principle, but it is not recognized by all possible partners as a good contribution. So you have to, you should organize a common view on this kind of issues, and I think it's a wonderful example.
Yeah, good point. David, let me come to you with a question from Gordon Knight, who actually, David, asked a question that was going through my mind, and it says this, David: I love the positive view regarding the cooperation between private security and the police. However, many panelists in previous webinars have identified the lack of trust between the two camps as being a serious stumbling block to cooperation. And I guess Gordon's question to you, David, is why are you more positive, whereas others see it as work in progress at best? Does it depend on individual partner relationships? Interesting point, David. Your thoughts?
And I think it's very valid as well. And I like a little bit of controversy. So I'm going to come back and say, look, I'm dealing with these people at every level and understand it from both sides of the fence. And I think, look, I think there's always going to be controversy with regard to this. And let me just throw a spanner in the works without mentioning groups and politics. You know, when we talk about certain perceptions of each other, we've got the police on one side, where in some countries we all know that there's certain ideas about defunding, and people will ask, well, why are they being done? Is it because the police are no good? Are there other rationales behind it? That's one thing. So they may not be seen as good as they used to be, or out of control. On the other side, you know, there may be one or two people over here or more who perhaps turn up to work without a license or give the security industry a bad name. It will always be the case that there are examples that people pick up on. I just can only speak from my point of view, is where I see on a daily basis the cooperation that does exist, in my view, and it is one that is generally very healthy. And I hope that helps a little.
Yeah, thank you, and well done. Thanks for coming back. Eddie, let me come to you. Here's a question that's right up your street. One of the things when I first met you, Eddie, you came to security having sort of a broader business experience, and you were telling me about that approach. And Peter Fraser Hopewell asked the question: the private security industry is in business to make a profit. How do you justify to your board that cooperation will lead to an improvement in the bottom line? Is that point really, Eddie, that we can say all these nice things, but really isn't profit the most important thing?
Well, yes, profit's important because we're in business. We're in business to satisfy shareholders or whatever in terms of returns. But it's about taking that longer term view or approach. Because if you invest time and effort into building relationships with the police or other authorities, yes, it might cost or it might take time, but what you're doing is, if you're building that longer term support network, then for us as an organisation, it has clear positive benefits, and who knows when there's a situation in the future when we might need advice or we might need support on something, and then you've got the relationships in play there that you can refer to, and certainly, another benefit in terms of taking some of that longer term view is that there are some very talented people who've got good careers in the police and other bodies, who are nearing the end of their time and can add value in organisations as well when they come out. So by investing time getting to know the services better, I think we can drive benefits from that in terms of future talent coming into the business, but also a lot of our clients are expecting us to have that sort of relationship in place and to give them the comfort that if something happens on their site, we can reach out to the police and get somebody down to help in terms of whatever needs to be done. So I see it as a longer term thing in terms of building that relationship, and I certainly don't see it as being contradictory in terms of making money. Yes, we've got to make returns, but it's about what that return looks like over a longer period of time.
So your board are not onto you to say don't do that. You haven't got to justify in a way that's troublesome for you.
No, not at all. And in fact, in many respects, it's the other way. They would be pushing to make sure that we are making these relationships and we are investing that time, because that's about building our own knowledge of what's going on as well, and positioning us as an organisation who have these relationships. So I would say, if anything, they're very proactive in terms of pushing us in that direction.
Good. Peter, I mean, I'm interested in the point that you work on this point, you work in the railway industry. And I guess that's one of those areas where everyone agrees security is an absolute priority. I mean, passengers do, train operators do, governments do. Presumably, this is a trust and mutual working together is unproblematic, is it, in that area?
I don't believe your statement is for the whole correct, because security is not seen as a priority. High risk incidents are seen as a priority, and there is a close cooperation about these high risk incidents like terrorism in the relationship between railway sector, for example, and police and national government. However, for the regular security incidents, that's different, and that's one of the statements Glenn Gitterhamming is making as well. Security is about protecting assets, processes, employees, clients, and so on. So it's not to have an active police role. It is what can be done by the company, and they should do that in a professional way, and it is done in a professional way in the railway industry in the Netherlands. However, at some point, it's beyond the scope and the responsibility of a private company to make actions. For example, wearing guns is not allowed by private security people. So at that point, you have to make a good relationship, building relationship between company and police. And well, that's more or less always started with individual relationships, and you can build that through a well organized long-term relationship in the end.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And let me come to you, David, because you like a bit of controversy. So does the question that Peter was just mentioning there from Glenn Kittringham. So David, he's saying that panelists are simply encouraging security to take on a more active police role. Considering that it's clients who are paying for this, why should the client do this when it takes security away from their primary duty, which is to protect the asset of the client? So very much echoing this theme that can you see it as a no-brainer? It's an easy decision to make that the security sector would want to get involved beyond just its immediate remit.
Yes, yeah, absolutely I can, because there is so much more to offer. Now, Eddie made a great point with regard to perhaps retiring police officers. Why wouldn't we harness, for example, senior investigators, crime scene managers, event managers, etc., etc.? Why wouldn't we do that for people who are actually retiring around 30 years service, who are probably looking for another 15 to 20 years to come into an industry that will really develop them still and provide more value back to, you know, to the community? So that's one thing I have in my mind. Also, you know, it would potentially be cost saving to the police if they also diverted their attention to the security services, to be able to do such things. And as I said before, to replace police officers' wages, to be able to direct them to different duties, which would be more cost effective to them. So that's my answer to that.
Yeah, okay. I mean, and what's the barrier to achieve? I mean, that's not happening though, David, is it? I mean, what's the barrier to making that happen?
It's a good question. I'm not sure there are as many barriers as we'd like to think, because there are many officers that I can name who have gone into the security industry exactly as I've described. And there are certainly police who go back into the security service and then supplied to the police service in different forms. So the security service take on the liabilities, the pensions, the uniforms, etc. Maybe there are some barriers with regards to the trust element that you provide in certain areas. I don't think they reside so much in the main conurbations, but maybe in the heartlands of the country.
Okay. I mean, let me come to a question that I'd like to get to all of you very quickly. We're running out of time, but Eddie, the pandemic, okay, a great chance for security to shine. In your view, have the benefits that security have been generating, many of you mentioned, Eddie, in your opening speech, do you think that they have been showcased during COVID-19? And do you think if they have, there's a long-term gain there?
No, I don't believe they've all been showcased. And you know, I think there's a lot of hidden benefits that have come through, you know, through the COVID, the pandemic period. Because, you know, if you look at, we've got lots of examples of this, but you know, lots of the tall buildings or large buildings around the City of London or central London, the building management teams during the pandemic period were working from home. And the only sort of presence or real presence in the buildings were the security teams. And the security teams weren't just providing security services, they were providing all forms of facilities and building management services firsthand, directly back, you know, okay, through sort of verbal comms with the building management teams. But, you know, to keep some of these complex buildings running and open and fully serviced during that period is a credit to the skills and the abilities of many of these security teams in being able to, you know, pick up additional skills and do extra roles and activities. And I don't think that has been very well showcased at all. But you know, I think there have been some good examples. But you know, I think as an industry, we've probably got more to go in terms of, or more to do in terms of showcasing how we've benefited or how we've kept lights on in GB PLC during that period. Because as I say, when most people were working from home, the security sector was one of the few that were in at work every day.
Yeah, okay, interesting. Thank you. Peter, this point about the pandemic, and there's a chance, in theory at least, the security sector to show its value. Do you think it did? And do you think that was recognised?
Oh, well, that's a broad question. Well, what I do hope is that the pandemic shows that it was a low chance possible high effect incident for business operations. And so major security incidents are as well. And in fact, we can say that only a few were prepared on that level that should have been expected. And what I do hope is that the security managers of companies are able to translate the approaches from the pandemic to their security issues, to say to the boards of companies, look, here's a great example of a low chance possible high effect incident that was not prepared, like it is with some security incidents. So it should be have more attention than it had in the past. I hope that that has the positive effect on that.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. And David, to you, this reality about whether any learnings from the pandemic can be harnessed. I mean, do you think it was showcased, and do you think the learnings will be harnessed?
I think they probably will. I think listening to fellow directors across the sector, there's a worry that things could return, or certainly be sustained over some years. And I think really it's made us much stronger to be able to deal with this in a more resilient and underpinning way for our clients in particular, and to the wider community.
Okay, thank you. Eddie, I was going to ask you a quick question from Chris Middleton. I'm going to have to ask you briefly 1 minute if you wouldn't mind, Eddie. Do you think there's any danger of a blurring of distinction between private security and the police? In other words, we tend to play up the benefits as we've done on this panel, but there are inherent difficulties, aren't there, if you blur that distinction? In some cases, some police chiefs might say it makes me more difficult for me to support you if you get too close, because you begin to look like us and our unions don't like it, etc. Eddie, is there a danger there?
I mean, from a personal perspective, no, I don't think there is. But there is a danger if we keep trying to push to make the two closer. And just picking up on an earlier point as well. I don't think what we're doing with the police is about becoming a pseudo police force or doing certain police activities. It's about harnessing their knowledge and harnessing their the strengths that they bring to help us do our job better. And I'm very clear in my mind. We are not in any way as a business trying to step in the toes or do anything that the police do. The police are here to do what they do, and they do it very well. We have our primary responsibilities are to the people who pay our invoices, and that's always got to remain the case. So, but I think and certainly as David's alluded to as well, there's areas where we can interact better and we can share experiences better and share intelligence better. And I think as long as we continue to do that, you'll get a more efficient police force and you'll get a more efficient private or security sector. But we shouldn't, and I don't believe there's anybody that I'm dealing with anyway who are trying to blur that lines between what the private sector should be doing and what the police should be doing. I think that's clear. We should stick to that.
Sounds good advice to me. Okay, panel, thank you so much for your time. Some excellent points. Enjoyed that conversation, I have to say, and I'm sure we'll be picking up on these issues in future webinars. Thank you very much indeed for your questions as well. A few final comments from me, very, very briefly, just to say that OSPA entries are open, but closing soon in the US. On the 1st of July. In the Benelux, they close on the 4th of July. In Kenya on the 9th of July. So you've got to get your entries in as soon as you can, please. Germany, Norway, and Romania, you've got a bit more time, but don't be complacent. More countries open soon. And the Tax and Economic Crime Awards in the UK, they're open. So do get your entries in there. Just also let you know the cyber OSPAs Look at all those organizations that are supporting this, a worldwide initiative, cybersecurity. In fact, we're adding another association tomorrow. We've been talking to India today, and they're getting enthusiastic. So a chance to enter the CyberOSP as a worldwide security initiative. All those categories, do please encourage the very best to enter. And finally, to say that we're going to be going through this all over again. Our 125th webinar is next Tuesday, where we're thinking about security training. Too much on security officer guard and not enough on the security manager director? If you want to hold the security sector to account, don't you need to get to a different group of people? Well, we'll have some panelists who will be arguing that point both ways. Thank you once again to my panel today. Thank you very much indeed to you, the audience. And thank you in the background to Christine and Hannah. I hope to see you all on Tuesday, but wherever you are in the world, until we meet again, stay safe.